All right, so we're just gone 12 o'clock. It is Friday, and today is the day where we have an ILRE Real Estate Success Story interview. And I've got to say, we're going to wrap up the year with an awesome interview. This gentleman has been involved with the community for quite a while, and he's done some fascinating things, and he's changed his life, and he's also really taking things to a very, very high level. So it's going to be a fascinating interview. Now, one of the things about these ILRE Real Estate interviews is to really give you an insight into what you could achieve further down the track. And thanks, Lou, for letting us know. Awesome. What could you achieve when you get yourself involved, take up the training, follow what Dymphna says, and really put in place the trainings and the teaching so that you can actually have the successes in your lives as well. And today's interview is going to be very much along those lines of having a look at when you get involved, when you start in the training, when you actually put things in place, what could you achieve? So I'm going to get straight into it today because this is going to be the final one for 2021. And I believe this is going to be just really, really insightful. This gentleman has been involved with the community, like I said, many, many years. And I'm really, really glad to be able to arrange this so we can actually get him and join us and share his story. Tom, welcome to the interview.
Thanks, Michael. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's been you've got a lot of things juggling at the moment, so I really appreciate you taking the time to share.
Always happy to help, Michael.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, now what I want to do is get straight on into it. And can you give us a bit of an idea? Before you joined ILRE Real Estate, what was your life like? Like, where were you coming from? And this was quite a while ago because you joined back in 2009. Was that right?
Yeah, I've been with the community a fair while now. So coming up to 12 years, I guess, with Dymphna, since I did the very first my very first course with Dymphna. So yeah, it's been an epic journey. Fantastic results that I've achieved through both with Dymphna and some other mentors that I've worked with. So I guess looking back, where did I start before I where the whole story started before I joined Dymphna? I guess I've always loved property, and I've always had an interest in property. But I think I was very much like a lot of investors that have the desire to get an investment property and go out and buy pretty much anything because their accountant says that's a good thing to do. Buy something that is losing your money every year so that you can claim it off your tax and reduce your tax bills. So, and I don't think I was any different to anyone else in that respect. Looking back, whilst fortunate enough not to have lost any money on any deals, there was not a lot of insight into things like even the security and the structure of the ownership that Dymphna talks about. Everything was bought in my own name. Everything worked, and as I said, I didn't lose money on it, but they were far from ideal purchases, I guess, in terms of building a portfolio and having it structured correctly and thinking about cash flow rather than losing money. So over the process of since doing that initial boot camp and subsequent boot camps with Dymphna, I've worked forward from doing what I call, in some respects, scrapper deals, which were good, and they earned money. Moving forward to my aim was always to get into property development and the pinnacle of real estate investing in terms of generating new product. So that's kind of where I've come from.
Tom, do you remember the event that you went to, that first event when?
I do.
And were you like sitting there going, "Oh no, I've done this wrong and I've done that wrong"?
Oh yeah, 100%. Even from the one day I did initially with Dymphna, that was in Melbourne. I actually flew down to do the one dayer because I lived in Melbourne for 15 years and I'd just moved back to Newcastle. So I decided to go back down to Melbourne and visit some friends and take the opportunity to to do the 1-day event, and out of that, it was just like my jaw dropped. You know, it was one of those realizations how you'd done everything wrong, as Dymphna has a habit of being able to make you realize the error of your ways. So that was great. And then the first boot camp was actually down at Sutherland region of Sydney. I can't remember the exact place, but it was a small venue down in the Sutherland area, down around Cronulla somewhere. So it was the first 3-day event. It just opened my eyes to to what you could do with property, and really that was the journey moving forward of completely rethinking property. And I remember to this day Dymphna saying in that 3-day event that you'll never look at property the same way again, and I never have. I've never. It puts a completely new set of glasses on in terms of the way you look at your property investing.
Wow. So how did things change? Like when you first got in there, obviously you're going to the boot camp, things really shifted. What did you do? What happened? What were the changes from your side?
So I started looking, for properties that, literally walking out of that with my focus was to look at, high cash flow properties. So coming back to Newcastle, one of the things that Dymphna said to look at universities, look at areas around universities. Newcastle has got a massive university, as you know. So from an infrastructure point of view, we're well served by educational facilities. So there was a real opportunity around Newcastle University to look at rooming accommodation there. So I bought my first place there literally within a couple of months of finishing the course. Did a quick reno on that, cosmetic reno on that, with the view of putting more rooms on the back. And that was cash flow straight off the bat. Literally after I bought it, mind you, I bought that thing for $310,000. So it was a very, very cheap entry into the market for rooming accommodation. Whilst I was actually doing the reno on that property, the guy from next door just walked in and he said, "Oh, are you interested in buying my house?" So I said, "Oh, maybe." So we had a look at that one, just worked out, whether it would work. And we ended up buying that one next door as well. So, it's things, when you start doing things and when you get your head in that space, opportunities just flow, and they do flow. So
that's a fascinating point of view, because it's like, I was just going to ask you that, if you found that once you start to get into a deal, other things actually appear.
Absolutely, Michael. And I found that in property development as well. When you're in the market, when you're looking for deals, you tend to get so many opportunities just pop up, and literally, we've just exchanged recently on a development site in Newcastle, and honestly, within the last 6 weeks, I've been offered about 6 or 7 sites in the Newcastle area. Not all of them work, obviously, but I'm working with 2 other Dymphna students on both of those developments. One which we've just exchanged on at in Newcastle, which is a 4-townhouse site. Working closely with a student of Dymphna's who's done a lot of work and was part of the finalists in the recent Super Conference. So very very talented guy in his own right. I'm looking forward to getting into that project.
Interesting. I've got to say, it is one of those things that Dymphna mentions, but it's like, until you experience it, you don't know it's working. It's like it's the RAS system, isn't it? It's like, you never see any yellow BMWs, but as soon as you go, you know what, I want to buy myself a yellow BMW. They are everywhere. It's that exact same
law of attraction. Yeah, I think once you get yourself into that mindset, you'll be amazed at what happens. It's just getting yourself to being in that position where you start taking some risks, and like anything, property has an element of risk about it. But until you start taking some risks, in that space, and I guess ignoring some of the bad news stories in the media, and just focusing on where you want to be and your goals, then things will start flowing out of that. And I can attest to that. I had an example, Michael, where I was working at a charity organisation, and I was driving past a place on the main road, which I could see was separated into 3 separate units. It was quite a rundown old place. And I used to drive past this thing every day for 6 months, and I used to say to myself, if that thing ever comes onto the market, I'll buy that. And I kept driving past it, and one day a for sale sign appeared out front. So as soon as I got to work, straight on the phone to the agent, and I said, I'll meet you there at midday. So I met her there at midday, and I put an offer in after looking through the place. It was pretty run down, but I could see the potential in it, and they accepted the offer on it, and I got that one. So that's just kind of wishing things into your life, and the more you do that, the more likely it's going to happen.
Out of interest, how long before when you saw the sign to when you had it under contract? How long was that period of time?
A day and a half.
So like 36 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you had gone past it for a whole lot of time, setting it up in your mind before that. Boom. Yeah. It just happened straight away. Yeah. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Every day, like I'd go past that place every day, and I'd look over, and I saw the opportunity with 3 separate dwellings. Every day I drive past it, and I just kept saying to myself, if that pops up, I'll buy it.
Yep. So you've already got the area expert hat on.
Yeah.
As soon as you see it, yeah, love it, man. Hey, Tom, what part of Dymphna's programs kind of most impacted you?
I think having the initial 3-day conference just completely changed my mind on how to invest and what sort of deals to look for, rather than looking at a property and thinking, okay, I just have to buy a property because it's a good property to buy, and eventually it'll make me some money 10 years down the track with capital growth. I mean, that you can't say the same over the last year, but if we go back to normality and back to from when I started looking at cash flow properties in 2010. Capital growth wasn't that rapid, and particularly in Newcastle was not that rapid. It suffered, low capital growth for a lot of years. It was only really when it started its boom in kind of 2016 that property prices really started taking off. So, to buy something for capital growth in Newcastle wasn't particularly a great investment. It is now. Had you bought back then? So, for me, it was about buying the right property and buying an opportunity where I could add value to the property. And so things like manufactured growth, that where there's potential in a property, looking at a property, for example, a year ago in the middle of COVID, I purchased in a regional town in the Hunter Valley. That was right in the middle of COVID, and I found a place that was a corner block. I knew it had 2 lots already. What I didn't know was it actually had 2 titles as well. So it was basically an old system title, but it had 2 valid titles that I could literally turn around the day after I bought it and sell off the back block, which was a completely vacant block of land. And the subdivision was already done effectively. So it's about identifying those opportunities where there's potential in a block of land, rather than just buying, a straight block of land that has little or no potential to do manufactured growth on. So I've turned the front block of that one into an Airbnb, which we've literally today we're getting our first guests in on that property. And the back block now is probably worth around $320,000, which was just a free carry through the process. So I'm now looking at potentially doing another 1 or 2 places on that back block, to add to cash flow properties.
Wow, love it. Now, do we have a question here from Lou? Tom, have you considered contacting the owner direct, wondering if you were keen? Why wait for it to come on the market?
That's a good question. I'm not the kind of knock on the door kind of guy. I guess I'm probably a little shy in that respect. It was just an interesting story, just purely because of what I'd set up in my own mind, and that kind of law of attraction kind of thing. So it was more a story about that. There's probably more chance of me actually doing a door knock or a letter drop now. Not that I do. I tend to kind of rely on my agent network to kind of help me out finding deals for property development. But yeah, if that's a thing that you can do and you can do confidently, and by all means, whatever it takes really to get your next deal.
Yeah, cool. Now, Tom, you've done platinum, haven't you?
I haven't done platinum, no.
Oh, you
no,
haven't? Okay.
No.
All right. Okay, cool.
No,
you came in as an ultimate student?
Yeah, and I've stayed in ultimate, and I've refreshed over multiple boot camps, because every time I go back, I always pick up a little gold nugget that you can take away. So, keeping connected with the community, and also I jump on Facebook and I try and answer as many questions as I can, to help people out with questions that they have. I like to try and post stuff as well, just to kind of give people some inspiration in terms of, there are deals out there. Don't think there's never a deal out there. There's always another deal out there. It's just a matter of finding the right one. But the longer you spend researching, looking in your area, the likelihood of and getting to know your local agents, keeping a good rapport with those agents, keeping a good relationship with those agents. And in fact, the deal we just got in Newcastle, that was Peter actually just having a good rapport with an agent who'd actually gazumped him on a previous deal, but came back to him because Peter just kept a good relationship with that particular agent, and that agent brought the deal to us. So, relationships are really important. Keeping connected with the community. It doesn't matter how small your success is. I see some fantastic posts on Facebook of people who've just been inspired to even just renovate their PPR, get some equity uplift, and then use that equity uplift to move into other deals. So it can start with your own backyard. Literally, you can add value to your own property.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point. Tom, did you want to kind of take us through some of the deals with how they've turned out from a profit side of things as well? Because you've done a variety of things. I mean, from what I understand, you've done the short-term rental, you've done student accommodation, strata subdivisions, multiple townhouse developments as well. Do you want to take us through some of those and give us an idea of how they've stacked up?
Yeah, sure. So probably my very first property development deal wasn't a small one. Like normally people start out with a 4-pack. So I bought a 1,200 square metre block in a suburb that was close to the university, but it wasn't specifically designed to be, student accommodation or anything like that. But it ended up being an 8 townhouse development. And it was an interesting block because it kind of defied all the logic of, what people say about your development block, which should be as flat as possible, sloped to the road, services at the front. So this block sloped to the back, quite steep. Had a sewer line going across it, had a hunter water easement out the back, but just through using a good architect, we were able to achieve an 8 townhouse yield on that particular block. We had a couple of issues that we had to resolve. One was sewer. Obviously, sewer needs to flow with gravity. So 2 important things to get off the site is sewer and stormwater. So if you can't manage to get those off effectively, it's not a development site. So the sewer line for this particular site ran right through the middle of the block, about halfway down the block. So the solution that we came up with for that was the architects came up with it, was a massive tank that was buried down about 6 metres, and we gravity fed the bottom 4 units into that tank, and then that gets pumped up via a pump into the actual sewer line. So the sewer line was just sitting above it. So, you know, there's engineering solutions around a lot of problems. People kind of find blocks and they go, oh, there's a sewer line running across it, it's no good. Well, that's not actually true. I mean, if you check with, you know, utilities and you find out what's actually possible, you can actually turn a development, what would appear to be a non-development site, into a development site. So the other challenge with that site was we had to get the stormwater off, and to do that we had to run over to an easement that was owned by a utility, Hunter Water, and then we had to take a pipe out onto RMS land. So there was a freeway running out the back, so we had to transverse and run across the verge of a freeway and empty into an RMS asset, the pit at the off the highway. So we had to do a whole bunch of stormwater calculations for that and get that approved. So we had to get it approved through 2 authorities just to get our stormwater off the site. But we did it, you know, just perseverance, and there's challenges pop up all the time. But
now, Tom, just to clarify here, this is your first deal.
Yeah. First development, property development.
Okay, right. Dymphna says don't go too big to start with,
no,
but this is your.
I wouldn't recommend it. You know, try and find something that's relatively flat, slopes to the road, ticks all the boxes from a development standpoint. It had its challenges, but the good thing about it was, for me, you know, it set me up with a mindset of, you know, you can pretty much turn most blocks into something from a development standpoint, so long as, you know, you can get the yield on the site that makes it worthwhile. So a lot of engineering challenges you can overcome.
Yeah, awesome. So, and that would have given you a stack of experience along with the confidence as well to be able to just to any other site you'd be very well set up. How did that stack up from a profit side of things?
Yeah, that was really good. So this is going back a number of years. You know, that project, I think we pulled out $575,000 in profit out of that deal. We sold all of the properties, and my one mistake was I ended up keeping one of the properties. You know, and Dymphna always says don't invest in townhouses necessarily, but it was my product. I ended up selling it because it was just in a low capital growth area. So kind of lesson learned out of that, and you know, I've honed and fine-tuned where I would keep property and where I wouldn't keep property. Even if it's townhouse product, you know, there's areas that you would most definitely keep it from a capital growth point of view. But yeah, a lot of learning lessons on that one. You know, but it still worked out to be a very, very good project.
Awesome. And what came next after that?
So then had a couple more projects, a 4 townhouse project, 6 townhouse projects. So both of those were run pretty much same time. So that was interesting. So one of them, the 4 townhouse project, we'd actually bought the site ourselves, but the 6 townhouse project was actually a JV arrangement with the landowner, and plus we also had investors involved in the project as well. So that was interesting in that the deal was 1 townhouse back to the owner. So that was and some cash. So that was the payment for the site. So we paid a cash deposit, which paid out. There was 2 brothers that basically owned the site. So one of the brothers took the cash, and one of the brothers took the townhouse. You can tell who the smarter brother was, and it wasn't the one that took the cash. So, and then we pulled in 2 investors as well. So to help fund the equity into the deal. So it was an interesting project as well, because the council, one of the council planning instruments was just about to change as well. So we had to kind of get the DA up and running and into council by a drop dead process in I think it was like late March or something like that. So, you know, time was of the essence. We really pushed hard on getting the design, and it was a really good design actually. So we eventually got it through. We were kind of a little concerned for a while, because we didn't think we were going to get the yield because of visitor car park requirements. For 6 townhouses in Newcastle, that would have required 2 visitors car parks on site. And we had 2 requests for information back from the council. And in the end, we kind of compromised on a couple of other things. And in the end, they gave us an exemption on the second visitors car park because it was a high growth precinct. So they wanted development in that area. So that was like literally a couple of days before Christmas, a few years back, that we got that DA approved. So it was the best Christmas present ever because, you know, had we not got 6 townhouses, we would have been in all sorts of strife with giving one townhouse back to, you know, to the owners. So we got it through. And then we had some challenges with the builders on that project as well. That project went a lot longer than it was supposed to. So, you know, it's inherently risky doing property development projects, but it's, you know, it's if you can manage those risks, and a lot of that's, you know, there's build risk, weather risk, obviously, and there's market risk, I guess, that although that doesn't really come into play.
Oh, and looks what we might have frozen, Tom. Not too sure if you can hear us. Looks like we're having a bit of internet issue. You lost him? He's frozen. He's frozen and stuck in a bit of a spot.
You might have a bad connection here, Mike.
No, I can hear you now. Still looking like you're in one frozen spot. Okay, so look, I'm hoping that Tom will get back to us very soon. But I got to say, first deal. Oh, okay. So it looks like Tom's dropped off. I'm sure he's going to just jump back on straight on. So let's just hang tight. But I got to say, it's a pretty fascinating start when his first deal is an 8 townhouse development. Next one he does, here he is, he's back. Is a 4 townhouse and another 6 townhouse as well. And spotlight. You're back. Oh, you just muted. I think you just got to unmute.
There we go. We're back.
You're back. Excellent.
I'm upstairs in my house and the internet is not particularly great in this back room, so I apologise for that.
No problems, no problems. I was just kind of just describing it's probably not the best idea to dive off into an 8 townhouse development and then a 4 townhouse development and then a 6 townhouse development at the same time.
Yeah, but the 4 and the 6 were the same time. The 8 wasn't.
Yep.
Yeah, look, always do what you can manage financially. You know, you got to weigh up your risk in terms of what capacity do you have to commit to a project? What funds do you have to commit to a project? And level of risk, obviously. So, you know, some people have got a higher level of risk tolerance and can manage, you know, multiple projects at a time. But I tend to kind of try and keep it to 1 or 2 at a time.
Good. So how did it stack up from a like the 4 townhouse and the 6 townhouse? How did it go from a profit side of things once you'd obviously passed over the house? You've got the house to one brother, the cash to another brother. How did it stack up for you?
Yeah, no, it was good. Despite the fact that we had some problems with, you know, builders, that was a profitable project as well. We paid out our investors exactly. In fact, we paid them out more than we'd estimated we would have paid them out. So they were really happy. So we had happy investors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got out what we expected out of the project as well. Pardon me. So, you know, all around that was a good project. It was stressful at times, but that's part and parcel of, you know, doing property development. And the 4 townhouse project, it was great as well. One of the secrets of good property development is buying well. And, you know, I think Dymphna says that as well. You know, you can make a lot of your money in the purchase of a site. So, you know, if you can get something that's under market value, you know, you're immediately ahead of the game from a valuation point of view and from an end profit point of view. So, you know, buying well is extremely important in property development.
Mm-hmm. And Tom, it seems like you're going down the path of chunk deals as opposed to cash flow.
Yeah.
Is that your initial
Yeah.
strategy that you're moving into?
Both, Michael. So adding to portfolio whenever possible, like the Airbnb is an example. So that's we've just finished. It's a high-end Airbnb. So we've just got our first booking, and that was $1,000 for 2 nights. So it's kind of the high-end market, because we identified an opportunity in that market. There was not a lot of high-end accommodation in that area. So we identified from the start that that's what we were going to do. So we're starting to get some good bookings now, at the upper end of the Airbnb market. So that's good. But also, I love doing property development. So I'll keep finding sites and keep doing property development deals, despite what the media keeps coming up with. I just read another story today. Someone's predicting as soon as RBA rates start going up, the market's going to drop 15 to 20% within the first 100 basis points. So, I mean, if you listen to that sort of noise, you're going to sit on your hands and you're not going to do anything. Obviously, weigh up your risks and weigh up where you want to be. But I try to avoid the noise. Had I believed that, I wouldn't have purchased last year, where the predictions were 30% down. What happened? It went 30% up, so they were 60% wrong. So there's a deal in any market. Really, it's just a matter of finding that deal.
You've got a really creative and kind of viewpoint on a lot of things as well, being able to solve problems and also not get distracted by the noise as well, which is great.
I guess our brains are inherently wired to be slightly negative. That's what kind of keeps us alive. But you can take that to the next level and read all the news and live in constant fear. I think you kind of need to step away from that, step aside and just focus on what you want to achieve, in your lifetime and through your property journey, and try and just take, and news will play all of that stuff up. That's their job. That's their job, is to make things sound worse than it is. So yeah.
And look, on that point as well, Susie's asked a question here. It sounds like the target tenants are students. I think that was for the Airbnb, which you've just clarified as well. But she said, does COVID have an impact to the earnings these last 2 years?
I ended up selling those properties. I identified that market was really starting to get saturated. So 2 things in around that particular university. 1, it was getting saturated with rooming houses, and 2, what was happening was the uni was building its own in-house accommodation, and secondly, developers were starting to build around the perimeter of the university on vacant blocks, building custom, student accommodation. So brand new products with students could have their own room rather than sharing a room with 10 other students. So I could see the writing on the wall for student accommodation in that area. So I kind of got out at a good time, sold that property, and I know it was sold and on-sold another 2 or 3 years later, and they'd only managed to get another $20,000 in capital uplift on it. So it wouldn't even cover their stamp duty on that property.
Wow.
So
yeah.
So you've got to be tuned into what's happening in your market, and that's obviously being an area expert and knowing your market, so that as soon as things start to change, and some of this specialty accommodation or specialty real estate, you need to make a call to say, is this sustainable? Is this going to be a risk to me in the future? And if necessary, offload properties that potentially aren't going to serve you well in the future.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Other deals, Tom? Have you got some others that you're keen to share? Or you're happy to share?
Yeah, I think that one in regional, just up in the Hunter Valley, that was a good, case in point. So again, it was 2 lots. I purchased the entire block for 620,000, and then subsequently found out from my solicitor that it actually had 2 titles, so a title across both blocks, which immediately just added value to that back block. And it kind of goes to show you that, you know, agents don't necessarily pick up on these things, and vendors don't necessarily pick up on these things, because had they known, they could have easily got another $150,000 for that property by selling the back block separately to the front block. But it was a deceased estate. It had been for 12 months, and there was 3 or 4 siblings involved in, you know, in probate and getting the place sold. So I think they just wanted it sold, and they just wanted to split the money. So they weren't interested in trying to sell a back block and a front block separately. They just wanted it sold. And again, it was, you know, this is what education brings. It brings that knowledge that when you see 2 lots, you know, you've got an immediate opportunity there, because the block is already in 2 lots. So, you know, so straight away there's an opportunity to do something on that block that wouldn't otherwise be there. But then to find out that it actually had 2 titles as well was icing on the cake. And I found that out through my solicitor after we'd exchanged. So, you know, there's no going back from for the vendors from that point of view.
Yeah.
So I did a fairly extensive renovation on the front house, basically rebuilt the front house. Not myself. I had guys helping me. And I'm just working on with Clint at the moment to reval and get the equity back out of that front house. So just as a comparable, one diagonally opposite me in the same street that hasn't had a reno done recently, that just sold for $925. So, you know, conservatively, that house is probably my house is probably $900,000 to $950,000. And then the block out the back is worth $300,000. So on a cost base of around $860, and I think I shared this one on the Facebook site, on a cost base of $860, you know, that property is now valued at about 1.25, you know, just by virtue of, well, a couple of things. Manufactured growth, market movement obviously has had a big impact on that. But also, you know, having the second lot and the second title, you know, that's worth money straight away. That means you're saving money on doing a subdivision. So, you know, there's probably $50,000 to $70,000 saved on doing a subdivision.
So that 860, I think you were saying, is a cost in. That includes that extensive reno on the 620. Correct. Yeah, okay,
that's cost based for the property. You know, so there's no doubt, Michael, that, you know, there's been a fair amount of market uplift in that, but we're talking close to an equity uplift of nearly $400,000 in 12 months on the property. So that's not all market. I know that for sure, you know, in that area.
Right, nice one, hey?
Yeah, if those deals came along every day of the week, you'd be pretty happy. You know, it does take a bit of finding and a bit of research, but you know, that's where research is such an important tool, and just knowing your area. So when something like this pops up, you can go, yeah, that'll work. You know, and you can have a crack at it. I literally walked into that place and walked out and made an offer on the front doorstep on the day I looked at it, and then there was a bit of argy-bargy, as there always is, you know, over the next week. And the funny thing, actually, Michael, just going back to, you know, the law of attraction, this is how uncanny this was. So my final offer I made on that, I typed it in my phone, ready to send off to the agent. I was just talking to my wife about it, and she said, "Oh, just don't send anything. Just let him come back to you." And I literally put my phone down on my lap, and as I put it down on my lap, I heard this, you know, when you send a text.
Yep.
It sent the text off to the agent with my revised offer. So it was like it was meant to be, you know. And he came back that afternoon. He said the vendors accepted your offer. So, you know, like little things in life happen like that. That it's almost like the universe is talking to you and saying, "Yep, that's the right deal for you."
Yep, get into it. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you know, trust your intuition on things. Obviously, research and do your due diligence, but you know, occasionally there's you know, there's a stroke of luck in everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm starting to hear that a little bit more. The more we're talking, the more these kind of things are lining up. And, you know, you talk about putting in the, you know, the due diligence and being the market expert, but there's another aspect that adds onto that.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
That whole process as well, which is
and particularly when your mind is in the, you know, your mindset's in the frame of property and thinking about property.
Yeah.
You know, that's the sort of thing that happens.
Yeah. Tom, have you got a bit of a or you're happy to share a little bit of an overview of where you started and where you are? Because I mean, you've done multiple deals now, and you've obviously done very, very well in that.
Mm-hmm.
How are you positioned from when you started to where you are now? What kind of changeover have you achieved?
Yeah, look, you know, for me, I don't do property full time. I do actually, I do like to do a bit of work as well. I do some consulting work as well. So I kind of gear my life around how I want my life to be in terms of, you know, time availability and all that sort of stuff. So ironically, I'm actually working with a council. I'm working with the City of Newcastle at the moment. So and I work quite closely with the planning section, which is good. Yeah, don't get anything misconstrued about getting anything as a free ride, because that just doesn't happen. But it gives me a lot of insight into how the process works, you know, and how, you know, development applications go through council. So I find that really interesting as background for me. But you know, I live up near the beaches in Newcastle, so I'm close to the beaches. Bought at the right time up here. This market has exploded up this end of Newcastle, with, you know, Sydney-siders moving in, buying properties in Newcastle. Yep. I own my PPR outright, and, you know, I'm lucky enough to have the equity in this property to be able to do deals, you know, property development deals. So you know, that having that, I guess, that financial capability, you know, is a good thing, but it shouldn't necessarily stop you from, you know, getting involved in property. There is so many opportunities out there, and as I found out, there's so much money out there, you know, that people are willing to lend to help you, you know, to do the deals that you want to do, you know, provided they're good deals, and provided, you know, you can prove your you know, your credibility to an investor. So, you know, it's not having funds. I've got to say, it's probably easier having funds and being able to do deals, but it certainly shouldn't be. You know, I went through that process where I had to borrow every dollar to buy properties. You know, to kind of having enough equity now to be able to invest into deals and move forward. So yeah, it's a mix of both, Mike. I work the days I want to work with the council. So, you know, I've kind of got time that I can spend with my family, and also do my property deals. So it's certainly, you know, just through doing property deals has made my life, you know, a lot more enjoyable, I guess, in terms of, you know, time availability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like, I love doing things on property deals. So, you know, I don't see that as a time imposition on me at all. As I said to you just before the interview, I was supposed to be an architect this afternoon, but I've had a few things pop up, so just push that to next week. But you know, that's one of my priorities at this stage.
Yeah, awesome. Now, you've probably done, but with what you've done over the years, did you want to share, like, you know, often we hear from students, it's like, well, you know, what happens when things go wrong? You know, hear a lot of the good stories and so forth. But I know that with anything when it comes to investing, and I know that you've got your head wrapped around the whole area of taking very much a calculated risk, but things don't always turn out. And you have to be very creative in your solutions, what you described. Have you got a bit of a problem or an issue that you can kind of think, you know what, you're happy to share in regards to what happened for you and how you dealt with that?
Yeah, so I acquired a site in a suburb in Newcastle, and I was in a rush and I didn't do all my due diligence properly. I thought I had things covered, but I didn't drill down enough on some of the detail. So this area is known pretty much for its mine subsidence. It's one of the earliest places in Newcastle that did mining, and it did mining at very shallow depths. So, we're talking depths of 10 to 15 metres. So, so I rushed in, I bought this property at auction, which again is, if I can provide any advice, it's don't buy stuff at auction unless you very, very have to. Always try and, go in the order of off market, on market, private treaty, and then if you have to go to auction, but try and work with your agents to get off market deals. So I bought this thing at auction. Then I started doing a bit of detailed due diligence on it, because I planned to do like 5, 6 townhouses on this site. It was 1,000 square metre site, and pretty quickly worked out that it was never going to happen. And there was no other real good exit strategies for the property at all, which is really, really unusual for me not to have another exit strategy. So whether that's, it was a crappy old house on it. It was mildly flood affected as well. That wasn't too bad. We could have got around that, but the mine subsidence, as I found out, was 15 metres below the ground.
Wow.
So to do any kind of development on that site would have taken, us to grout that entire site, which would have been a really costly exercise and would have killed the financials on the project. So I was stuck. And as fortune had it, this property had an 84-day settlement, which is really unusual. Like normally in New South Wales, it's 28, 35, 42-day settlement. This property had an 84-day settlement. So I had 84 days to kind of try and work out how I could jump out of this deal, So I took it to my solicitor, and he went through the contract, and we looked at a couple of things, whether there was any structures that were built on site that weren't council approved, and whether we could, rescind the contract. And he found one clause in the contract, and I don't recommend this to any student really. I mean, my advice is to always do your due diligence up front and make sure you do it well. So he found one clause in the contract, which was an opportunity to get out of that contract by liquidating the company that we'd purchased it in. So it also highlights the need to have very good experts around you in terms of the people that you work with, accountants, lawyers, solicitors, all your property development people, engineers, civils, architects. Have a really good team around you, because you never know when you might need them. So yeah, that was pretty stressful. Knowing you're on the hook for a property that there was really no exit strategy for. So we ended up managing to get out of it and rescinding the contract legally. And in good faith, I paid a sum of money. I didn't have to, but in good faith, I did pay them some money. So just walking out of a deal, and yeah, you might have had a moral victory, but you've got to think, there is another side to this transaction. So cover agents' fees and all that sort of stuff. I left some money in the deal for them, but we were legally able to get out of that particular deal. But yeah, it was kind of a stressful couple of months, trying to work out, navigate how to get out of it. If there was any other way that I could have made that project work, I would have, even as the house was not in good shape. So it was meant to be bulldozed. So that, there was really no saving grace in terms of saving the house and doing something with the house. So, if there was an opportunity to do something, I would have done it.
Knowing what you've described over the last, almost an hour, and knowing how creative you are at solving problems, I could imagine you would have looked at every option. So yeah.
No, we looked at subdivision. We looked at every possible way, and we just kept coming to a dead end on every option. So mine subsidence literally had the big rubber mallet at the end of it and said, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. So the option was either grout the site, which if you know about grouting and you know about mine workings, if your mine workings collapsed, you can pump grout in and it just solidifies. It's like throwing cement onto Weet-Bix. But if there's a cavity there and the mine working's still open, the grout just keeps flowing until it stops. Now that could be under your neighbour's house. It could be under your, 2 doors down.
Okay,
So So you could be pumping hundreds of thousands of dollars of grout into a site that doesn't warrant and doesn't have the financials to support that. If it's a multi-level high-rise, sure, and they do a lot of that around Newcastle City CBD. But we're talking 15-story apartment blocks that can support the cost of grouting.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Wow. Fascinating. Hey. Fascinating. Well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then having your professionals around you. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's so important. Important to have a good team around you, and the important thing is if you use them, make sure. I kind of say to some of the guys that I'm working with, if you're using them, make sure you feed them as well. If you're kind of getting people to do engineering or even town planning stuff, make sure you turn around and use those guys when you actually have a deal, because you want to keep all those guys on your side and working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, we have a question here from Lou. Lou's asked, Tom, advice is often saying, learn the town plan. When looking at a totally new council, how would you define what that means and where to start?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. One of the biggest things to learn in the property development field is, what are the guidelines in your local area, or what are the guidelines within that LGA, that local government area? In New South Wales, and I'm speaking, most of my stuff's in New South Wales, so I can really only speak intelligently about New South Wales, but I suspect, most councils have the same arrangement. So there's normally a local environmental plan, an LEP. So each council will have an LEP, which is a statute that defines guidelines for development, for zones, for the various things that you can do within a parcel of land, and the zoning that applies to that parcel of land. So things like build height, floor space ratio, zoning, all those sort of things, all fall within an LEP. And then you have a supplementary document called a design control plan, or a development control plan, DCP. So that is more a subjective guideline for councils to use to say, what are the setbacks from the boundaries? What's the build form on the property? What's my ceiling height in the lower level of a townhouse? All those sort of things. How far? What's classified as landscaping and what's not classified as landscaping? So those two documents are probably the primary two documents that an assessing officer will use to determine a DA. Now, the quickest way, sure, you can get your head around all of that stuff, and trust me, it's a lot of reading and it's a lot of absorbing, or you can just go to a town planner. So your town planner is the person that will know those things back to front and will have done hundreds or thousands of developments using those two instruments. So, if you want to shortcut knowing all of that information, engage yourself a good town planner that works in your area, and work with those guys, because they'll tell you that stuff pretty quickly, rather than you trying to guess it or interpret it. Again, it's the benefit of having a good team around you, and a good town planner. And what you generally find is that most design houses or architects will have a town planner that they work closely with anyway. So if you're looking for that, we've got a great one-stop shop in Newcastle, where I can take a site to this particular place, and they'll do a yield plan for me, a massing plan, to work out what can fit on the site. Then they'll throw it out to the town planner, and the town planner will make comment on it and say, oh yeah, I think, solar's fine, setback's fine, all orientation of the build form, all that sort of stuff is okay. So I then get confidence back from that to say, okay, I think we can get 4 townhouses on that site. It's a pretty good bet. You've got to remember, these guys have done it hundreds, if not thousands of times. So if they look at a site and go, this is a 4 townhouse site, it's not guaranteed, but you've got a level of confidence in you to go forward and say, okay, I'm pretty confident that I get 4 townhouses on this site, because the town planner said it, the architect said it. Whereas if you're trying to work through LEPs and DCPs by yourself, trying to interpret those, understand setbacks, build form, council requirements, and also the town planners get to know the council and they get to know the assessing officers, because they have meetings with these guys. so they know, what the individual assessing officers want, what they want to see in design. So, you know, that would be my advice, is just get a good town planner.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So, Tom, how is your life different now to when you first started?
Vastly different from a property journey. I would have never dreamed I would have ended up doing property development. I've done 14 renovations, through my life. So I'm quite experienced at doing renovations, and I quite like doing it, actually, because I love the whole value add component of renovations, and I think they're a great thing. And for anyone that doesn't want to take the step into property development, I think renovations are a great thing, because you can add value so quickly, and with minimal risk. So whereas property development, you're taking potentially, in some cases, a perfectly good house that's sitting on a block and knocking it over, and developing new product on that, which can inherently have risk associated with it. Whereas if you've got an existing house that's on the block, that you can clean up, do some cosmetic renovations on it, even structural if you want, that's perfect opportunity to lower your risk and still have manufactured growth. So my background is been doing a lot of renos. I think I still will do the odd reno, but property development for me is a lot less taxing on my body, that's for sure. So it's less intense involvement, and it gives me more time in my day to do what I want to be doing. So we like to travel a lot. Not that we've been able to do much in the last 18 months, but that's something we like to do. So we've been able to travel a lot through doing property. But yeah, it's funny when I live and breathe property. It's always on my mind. There's always the next deal is on my mind. So when that's a good place to be, I think. If you're doing this sort of thing, is to to be thinking it, not all the time, but that's where your passion wants to be. And obviously, people that come and do Dymphna's course, are doing it for a reason. And generally, most people I've met and most people I've engaged with on the community, they're passionate about property. That's what they love to do. So, if you've got that passion, things will fall into place for you.
Yeah. Now, Tom, you just mentioned the community. How do you view the ILRE real estate community? Because it's a bit of an interesting one. And everyone kind of sees things, some similarities, but I think we all see things a little bit differently as well. How would you describe the community?
I love the community. I when I go onto Facebook, it's always, my notifications are this person posted on Ultimate. So I always look through. Is there anything I can help? With answering a question for someone that might help them out, with the benefit of experience. So, I always like doing that, but I also like hearing about people's little successes, no matter how small they are. It might be a cosmetic reno and they've got an uplift of $100,000 in evaluation, like that's the power of, what we're achieving as a community, and, supporting each other. And it's so positive. Everyone is always positive in terms of giving feedback to those people. So I've rarely seen a negative comment on on the Facebook side. So it's a very encouraging and supportive place to be. And I think just if you've got something to post it. If you've had a small success, post it. Because the encouragement that you get back from that, and the feel good you'll get back from that, is just inspires you to kind of keep going in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Super positive. Yeah, community.
100%.
Now, Susie has said, when you sell a property that you develop, would you still be responsible for the 7-year warranty, or would it be the builder?
Well, in the first instance, it's the builder. And you're also covered with, all the builder's covered with homeowner's warranty. So that's in case the builder goes broke. But ultimately, yes, if you are the backline of support for development, so you need to be sure that what you're building, if it all goes bad, your builder goes bad, and homeowner's warranty doesn't pay up, the buck stops with you as a developer. So there is that back end level of risk. So you want to be sure of your builders and your selection of builders when you're tendering. Have they got a good track record? Their financials pretty solid. So yeah, it's there's that level of risk in it.
Yeah, cool, awesome. And last one for you as well, Tom. If for anyone who's like a new student just joining or just thinking about joining, what advice would you give them if they're just starting out? What would you say?
So the one thing I think I've heard some feedback on is people do get overwhelmed, and that's really easy. And I completely understand how you could become overwhelmed. Don't get discouraged when you see other people posting, success stories and thinking that you're not going to get there. Small steps, start your journey. You can do stuff the day after you join. You can start adding value to your own property. And, I've seen recently some great examples of people that have, renovated their own PPR. So had to start at that base, to build a base. Start there and start adding value, adding manufactured growth, even on your own property. That's, if you've got the opportunity to purchase a site or a deal, obviously start looking at that and make sure you do your research and try and find deals that have got something in them that can, give you manufactured growth or allow you to do something out of the ordinary, other than just a standard block. But yeah, try not to get overwhelmed. Take each step at a time. And I think, the resources on ILRE website are fantastic. Just take it step by step. You don't want to try and change the world in a couple of months. Just take your time, absorb. The market's not going to go away. There's always going to be deals in the market, regardless of where the market's at. There's always deals, and there's, as I've found out, there's plenty of plenty of money out in the marketplace, to help you if you need to, and get creative as well. There's lots of creative deals you can do, vendor JVs, all sorts of things. So start small and just consolidate on your deals. Just build on your deals.
Yeah, awesome. Tom, that's it. We've gone for about an hour. I think we're pretty much good. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Because I wanted to, once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share.
Oh, very welcome. I'm glad I can, if it helps, a few people in the community, I'm more than happy to share. Thanks for the opportunity, Michael.
It's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure, and great to catch up and chat as well. It's been a while. Looking forward to when we can catch up in person as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a live event sort of person, so someone asked me about whether I was going to. This is another property group I'm a member of. Whether I was going to be on the virtual course, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm a live event sort of guy. I just like to live events and mixing with people and talking property." So I'm looking forward to the next boot camp.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Looks like we might end off there. Thank you, everybody, for joining in, both on Facebook, and we have seen some comments, some positive comments coming back to you as well, Tom, from both Facebook and also from Zoom. So we will leave it there. Have a fantastic Friday afternoon. For anyone who may have missed it, or you want to review it, this interview, the recording, is up on the Facebook group now. That's the Ultimate Real Estate Success Members Only Facebook group. So you can always review it there under the featured items, or just click on the videos. You'll be able to see that. But other than that, that's it for us for the year as well. This is the last interview for 2021. I think we're going to be doing them again in 2022. So have a fantastic afternoon on Friday, and also all the best over the holiday season as well. Hope you're all taking care. And that's it. I think that's it. We're done, Tom?
Thanks, guys.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks all for the positive comments, and have a wonderful Christmas, all those ones. Yep, absolutely. All right. We'll leave it there and catch up with you next time, hey? All righty.
That's fine.
Thanks, Tom. See you now.